Take a look at Novavax, BioNTech, and Moderna. Novavax among the best of the performers, up more than 3,700% this year. My next guest says be careful. These vaccine stocks could be the next weed stocks. Joining me now to explain is Jared Holtz. He's the healthcare equity strategist at Jefferies. Jared, it's good to have you. And tell me about the similarities you see here.
Kelly, thanks a lot for having me. I really appreciate it. So I've been doing a lot of thinking on these vaccine names, and they seem to be their own separate universe with respect to the stock performance, the magnitude of euphoria with respect to different trial announcements, whether it's a trial design, a start, some sort of result. And it just makes me think back to the marijuana stocks of 2017, 2018, when we saw a very similar setup. These were all sort of like penny stocks or the equivalent of that. And then they all exploded when the investor base thought that this was going to be the next leg of growth. And look at them now. They're all trading much closer to multi-year lows than multi-year highs as the crowded nature of the space and reality is set in. So I'm not suggesting that the data sets that we are going to get here are going to be unequivocally negative. I just feel like we're in the same sort of psychological zone we were in back then.
Yeah, and you've compared the market caps. Whereas cannabis stocks started out worth $32 billion, they more than doubled in value and then have kind of come full circle to $41 billion. And bulk of that is from Scotts Miracle-Gro. So you take that out and they're worth even less. Vaccine stocks started out Jan 1 worth $18 billion. They're now worth $65 billion. And you're worried they could be headed back to where they came from. Let me ask you as well about how lucrative winning this vaccine competition would be. We know the government's not interested in seeing this be a major profit engine.
That's totally right. When we look at the number of players here and what the government has already done in terms of funding, we've gotten almost $10 billion worth of funding, and that's a combination of development effort, but also procurement. So buying these vaccines, buying the injections before we even know what the phase 3 data is. And I think just based on the comments out of the large cap pharma group, that being Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, Merck, and others, it seems like the larger companies are going to be willing to be much more aggressive on price, or at least cognizant of the fact that we're dealing with a pandemic. So how much they are willing to charge, I think there's going to be at least some sort of sentiment around as far as what they're willing to take.
Yeah, and Moderna as well. I mean, you could argue, well, they have more at stake. They have more expense and more kind of on the line for this. So that's why they're maybe less negotiating on price. But I think the bigger issue as well from all of us who are curious about when this vaccine will be developed and how quickly is, I don't want to put it quite this way, but do you think that none of these quote unquote vaccine names are going to come through and have a vaccine in the end? Or are you saying even if they do, you got to be careful because of the way that they've been trading?
Yeah, the latter point, Kelly, for sure. I was with you a couple months ago in terms of trying to get ahead of what we thought was going to be a very accelerated approval timeline prior to the election. I think you've seen a lot of politicians, including the president, sort of echo that view over the past couple of weeks. But to your question, even if we get several of these vaccine players that put out good data, it's going to be several companies, if not more, that are vying for this market share and what I believe is going to be a very, very price-sensitive market